I offer a lot of advice to game masters through my videos here on YouTube, on my website, in my book So You Want to Be a Game Master, through my random GM tip Twitch streams, and in the RPGs that I've designed and published. And of course, I'm not the only one. There are dozens of other people on YouTube and Twitch and designing their own role-playing games. It can honestly be a little overwhelming at times. So something I get asked a lot is, how do you keep track of all this stuff at the table? Do you have any tips for using your tips? Yes. So how do you become a better game master? Well, it's a little like dancing. You do it one step at a time. Of course, there are some pretty complicated dances out there, and I've never seen a ballet dancer keep track of half a dozen NPCs in combat while also describing the scene, while also making sure they don't forget the vital clue the PCs are supposed to find, while also, a game master has a lot of things to juggle, is my point. So let's break this down into 3 simple techniques. First, in order to become a better game master, you have to run role-playing games. There's just no substitute for it. That's why it's the approach I take for new GMs in my book So You Want to Be a Game Master. Right at the beginning of the book, I very quickly lay out the basic skills a new game master needs in order to run their first session. This is after just 20 or maybe 30 pages. And then I say, go and do that. And then come back here and learn more. You really can't become a better game master until you're at the table doing it. Okay, so now you're at the table. How do you keep track of all this stuff? Well, the answer is you don't. Instead, you need to focus and master one thing at a time. And to do that, you'll set practice points for each session. As you learn about new techniques you want to master, whether from my videos, So You Want to Be a Game Master, or some other source of GMing lore, list 1 to 3 of these techniques on a post-it note and attach it to your GM screen. For example, one tip that I find useful when role-playing scenes with multiple NPCs is to give those NPCs competing goals or opinions. This conflict helps to keep the NPCs distinct in both your mind and the player's minds, while also making it easy to roleplay the scene because you've given them something to argue about with each other. It also forces the players to make up their own minds about which NPCs' goals and opinions they personally agree with, drawing them into the scene and the world. If you wanted to make this a practice point for your own game, you might write NPCs argue, or NPCs have different opinions on your post-it note. Having that practice point on the post-it note will keep it in your peripheral vision throughout the session, a constant reminder of the technique that you want to focus on. Once the technique has become habitual, of course, you can take it off the list and replace it with the next technique you want to add to your skill set. You can actually get extra mileage from this technique by choosing practice points that are complemented by the scenario you're running, and vice versa. Does the scenario feature a bunch of NPC social interactions? Grab 2 or 3 techniques designed to enhance your role-playing and focus on those for the session. Finally, although there's no substitute for actually running a game, you can practice some of these skills away from the table with exercises. You'll find a few of these exercises in So You Want to Be a Game Master, but they're actually surprisingly rare in GM advice. As an example of an exercise, when I wanted to work on improving my descriptions of combat, I would take a really great fight film like The Matrix or John Wick or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I would narrate the action as it happened on screen. It may sound a little corny, but it will build your repertoire of action choreography and help loosen up your descriptive instincts in the middle of a fight. Now, when you discover a new technique, just ask yourself how you might be able to practice it before your next session. That won't always be possible, of course, but it'll make a big difference when you can. On a similar note, if you're watching videos like this one, it's likely that you're going to build up a backlog of techniques. That's great. Keep a master list somewhere with links to the articles or videos where you first learned about the technique. When you're ready to retire your current practice points, just hit up your master list to figure out what you're going to focus on next. Speaking of GMing technique, when I spoke to the sponsor of today's video in the mirror this morning, he was very insistent that I should mention that So You Want to Be a Game Master not only includes everything you need to run dungeons, dynamic dungeons, mega dungeons, advanced dungeons, mysteries, raids, heists, node-based scenarios, point crawls, urban crawls, and hex crawls, it also includes a huge extra credit section, including a plethora of tips for running combat, splitting the party, creating scenario hooks, playing your supporting cast, rolling up rumor tables, and more. The book is available for pre-order now, and you'll find a link in the font of all knowledge with more information about that. Thanks to Son of Sofa Man for recommending the topic for this video. While you're racing down to the comments to make your own suggestions for what video you'd like to see next, make sure to sideswipe the subscribe button, the follow button, and any other suspicious-looking buttons you might spot down there. Good gaming. I'm Justin Alexander, and I'll see you at the table.